Increasing penetration of the internet brings with it increasing dangers. From weapons to child porn, the dark web has become the new playground for criminals. And what makes it even more dangerous is how easy it is for criminals to hide within its layers, making it much more difficult to nab those hiding behind this smoke screen. Here's a special report filed by Aishwarya Paliwal and Richa Sharma uncovering the menace of the dark web.
Lurking deep down within the shadowy realms of the internet is the dark web. The new playground for criminals. Accessing child porn, buying weapons and even hiring assassins to commit murders, everything is available on the dark web. The many layers and the amount that is still unknown about the dark web has made cracking down on it extremely difficult. What's even more concerning is the fact that child pornography is becoming increasingly rampant on the dark web.
It is a big problem and it's a global phenomenon, and there are agencies across the world which have been operating on these things, and there are technologies which are now available to detect and apprehend these criminals. So if you talk about dark web, yes, there have been many forums where such pedophiles, they get together and share such stuff, but it has been happening in the past that Western agencies have been infiltrating these forums, arresting these guys. And secondly, there is a new phenomena. What we are seeing is that people make close Facebook groups or WhatsApp groups and then they share the content. I think this is a problem which can easily be solved, and there lies the responsibility of the operators or service providers like Facebook or WhatsApp.
In fact, there are WhatsApp groups created specifically for this purpose, where members of the group use the platform to ask for and circulate child pornography. The visuals on your screens are examples of such groups that have been busted. Unfortunately, in the last 1 year, the Maharashtra Cyber Department has recorded and busted only 6 offences involving circulation of child porn.
With the increase in bandwidth and with the increase in ease of producing this content through ubiquitous and cheap mobile phones, it does not require a large camera setup and an editing setup. You can simply use a camera to produce and disseminate this content. That is why there has been a rise everywhere in this phenomenon. Similarly, all these instant messengers which work on a peer-to-peer basis, they give an easy platform for dissemination of this and other material. Now, as compared to an open medium like social media, where you can report abuse, you can track who has uploaded it. On such media, there is no way, due to end-to-end encryption, there is no way either to flag such content, report that it is inappropriate, or even find out who is, disseminating this.
The menace of dark web is spreading by the day. In fact, the access that young boys are getting to child pornography is taking a dangerous turn. Case in point being the incident or the bust of a racket where several of these WhatsApp groups have been accessed by the police and total 6 arrests have been made. In fact, I have in my hand the screenshots of a few of these groups where young boys between the age group of 18 to 25 are seriously discussing about access to child pornography. Not just that, they are also discussing and demanding child pornography on these groups, and also talking about how can they really get access to deep web. This is a very dangerous trend that is in fact developing according to the police as well as experts, who believe that eventually this might lead these young impressionable mind to start experimenting what they are watching currently. This is Richa Sharma for Mirror Now. You're in Mumbai.
And it is not just India. Child porn is a plague that has gripped the world. Last week, a German court sentenced a couple for more than 12 years each for raping their 10-year-old son, filming the act and selling it on the dark web. Last year, a British model was rescued from Italy after her abductors attempted to sell her on the dark web. The internet that we know and use regularly is just the surface and makes up only 4% of the internet. The other 96% is the dark web, and child pornography forms a major chunk of it. Tarun Vig is the co-founder of Inefu, an organization that works to tackle cybercrime and also gives advice to the government on ways to reduce it. Tarun broke down the dark web for us.
See, dark web is that part of the web which is not accessible to a normal user. Today, if you want to search for something, you are into a habit of opening google.com and searching for specific things. Google has their privacy policies, but they are monitoring what you're searching for. They know what you're searching for. Suppose I'm searching for guns or drugs. Google will get to know. Some law enforcement agency in some part of the world will get to know. This is where dark web came into prominence. People started opening marketplaces which were not accessible via Google. They are on a hidden layer of the net, a Tor layer. To log into the dark web, I have to take certain steps. I have to hide my addresses. I have to log into a virtual private network or to a Tor. And then I need to know what marketplace I need to open. Once I do that, the entire concept is so anonymous that nobody can trace me back normally. I can buy drugs. So you see a marketplace here where people are selling drugs and they actually deliver drugs. When you buy from them, you give a fake address, they come, they drop it into the post office, you just pick it up from that post office, from that little box. That is how they are selling drugs. People are selling guns. People are selling guns in the dark marketplace. Now when we talk about guns, you can actually buy guns on dark market.
I think the child pornography, if you're talking about in specific, I think mostly predominantly the entire child pornography happens through dark web, right? And there's a good reason for that because everybody knows it's illegal. And dark web gives you perfect anonymity. It gives you a hidden digital identity which nobody can really track. So of course, for all the illegal activities, dark web becomes the place to be.
It is time now for the government to join hands with those who deal with the dark web. This year, a US court sentenced a man for 30 years for selling pornographic material after the FBI nabbed him after a 2-year-long hunt.
Last 2 years में उत्तर प्रदेश ने 23 लैब्स साइबर लैब बनाए हैं. हम जो हमारे रिक्रूटमेंट में हम लोग टेक्निकल लड़कों को ले रहे हैं जो बीटेक कंप्यूटर साइंस और इस तरह के लड़कों को. अभी पिछले 2-3 सालों में हमारे 3500 रिक्रूटमेंट जो है टेक्निकल कैडर में किए गए हैं. दूसरा भी MHA से हम लोगों को फंड मिला हुआ है कि ऑनलाइन क्राइम अगेंस्ट वीमेन एंड चिल्ड्रन पे आप लैब बनाइए और सोशल मीडिया को मॉनिटर करिए कि अगर कोई चाइल्ड पोर्नोग्राफी से रिलेटेड या वीमेन के अगेंस्ट में कोई चीज़ वायरल हो रही है या कोई इस तरह की ऑब्सीन चीज़ नेटवर्क पे जा रही है तो उसको आप रोकिए और उसके खिलाफ कार्रवाई.
Cyber experts as well as law enforcement agencies both are of the opinion that right now what India needs is stringent laws. We have seen high penetration of internet across the country and because of anonymity it becomes extremely difficult for the agencies to track down those who are dealing in crime, especially when we talk about cybercrime. Both are of the opinion that right now India needs very stringent laws to be able to nab all those who deal in cybercrime. Aishwarya Paliwal for Mirror Now.
That was a detailed report filed by our correspondents Aishwarya Paliwal and Richa Sharma, who join us live now as well. Richa, if I can come to you first to just understand the menace of the deep dark web, how is it enabled and how does it also helps cyber crime? And what is really being done to curb this at the government level, and can this really be curbed?
That's right, Avni. If we start with the menace of dark web, when we first had in fact approached cyber experts, including the IG for Maharashtra cyber crime, Mr. Brajesh Singh, he himself stated that it is extremely difficult to regulate or even stop the menace of dark web, where we gain easy access to child pornography, other kinds of pornography, weapons of mass destruction, as well as in fact you can also hire assassins there. And this is what is the fear that these people have. And this is not just a phenomena situated in India, it is across the world. In fact, these are highly encrypted space where it's not like the normal surface web that we use. To access it as well, there are layers and layers of a deep web that you have to go through before we actually reach the point where we gain access to all these things. Apart from this, specifically talking about Maharashtra, in the past 1.5 years, the police has only been able to crack down about 5 to 6 such cases, and one of them being the very recent one earlier this month, where 6 people have been arrested for these WhatsApp circulation of child pornography. but it is extremely difficult to really track down these people because they do not have an IP address, they do not have a address that they can go to. These are people who use various other servers on Face to really hide themselves. So even if they try to trace down one person, they have already switched over their IP addresses. So it's extremely difficult to any kind of, for even a hacker to in fact track down who are these people circulating these images, who are these people really uploading child pornography on these platforms.
Right, so out of thousands of cases that have been registered, only 5 to 6 arrests have been made, and that gives us an account of how this dark web gives perfect anonymity to criminals, perfect anonymity to hide within layers, deep dark layers in the web. Aishwarya Paliwal also joining us now live. Aishwarya, what did you find out when you spoke to cyber experts, to cybercrime experts, security experts on what can be done? As Richa was throwing more light on that, it's extremely hard, extremely difficult to pin down these criminals. Is there anything that can be done?
Well, there can be laws in place. That is the first thing that can be done. Now, the FBI, in fact, for 2 years were after a person who used to run a website on the dark web, and it took FBI 2 years. They were on his tail for 2 years for them to finally zero in on who the person is and from where he was operating. This person used to run a website on the dark web where he used to sell children, he used to sell videos of minor children, and he also used to make sure that people could watch things being done to these minor children online live. Now that's the kind of things that the Indian authorities would have to do, be on the tail of people for years, and that's when they were able to zero in on someone. Now we have what the dark web actually is. If I can explain to you in a very simple term, it basically is like a supermarket where you get everything. And when we talk about a supermarket, on the dark web, the supermarket will sell you everything from weapons to children, minor children. You can also, in fact, if you want someone to be killed and you want to watch him being killed, that kind of facility is also available on the dark web. Now, why is it extremely difficult to know who are the people who deal with it? Because there are layers and layers of encryption which take place. Apart from that, 95% of the transactions, they take place in cryptocurrency, all the more making it very difficult for law enforcement agencies to zero down on the people who hire these people and to zero down on those who are running these websites. Another important point to note is the fact that these websites operate only for a few hours, and those who regularly visit the sites, they know they know where to go, where to find these things, and after a few hours these websites shut down, which is again what cyber experts say is a big hurdle for law enforcement players to get to know where these things are being operated from. In India, if you ask me specifically, the problem is that most of these websites don't have base in India. Most of them are in foreign land, which is why it will become extremely difficult for law enforcement agencies to track them down. But if a law comes into place, and that's what most of the cyber experts and law enforcement agents are also of the opinion, that if a law comes into place, then it might become a tad bit easier for them to trace down and to nab these culprits.
All right, Aishwarya, thanks for joining in and getting us that input there on the deep dark web that we are uncovering here at Mirror Now. Also joining us now on the phone line, Manu Zakaria, cyber security expert. Manu, for all of us who do not know what the dark web is and how is it enabling crime in the country, if you could explain to us in layman's terms, what does it mean?
In simple layman's term, you can say that any website which is not openly available through the open platforms like Google search engines or Yahoo search engine, we can call it as the dark web. And then you need a special browser or a software to access it. So basically the onion routing or the Tor browser is basically required to access the website. So this is the quick definition of it. Now, the other important factor here is the communication is routed through multiple servers, which makes it difficult for tracking it back. That is one point. And the second point is it is encrypted. So encryption means nobody can intercept it, or, it is very difficult to intercept the traffic and, understand what is actually going through that.
So now many experts say that stringent law needs to be in place and the government needs to look at this issue very seriously, because apart from fake news, fake scams, this is the big challenge ahead of the authorities to cope with. But do you believe, given the kind of encryption and the challenges that are there posing in front of even experts there to pin down these criminals, is it going to be possible at all for the authorities to curb this menace?
When we talk about encryption, it's more like a double-edged sword, in the sense it is required also, but at the same time it is misused by the criminals. So it's like a cat and mouse game, or like who is smarter basically wins this game. So if the criminals are on the advanced technology side, definitely it will be difficult for the law enforcement to catch up with the latest technologies. But the point here is, not every content on the dark web is illegal or malicious. There are legitimate content also.
Right.
But how to track it is basically a very good planning as well as capacity building, and technology-wise also we need to brush up. That's only we can address this issue, along with the, as you said, the strict laws has to be implemented.
All right, Manu Zakaria, thanks for joining in. Continue being with us. We also have Pawan Duggal joining us now on the phone line. Mr. Duggal, thanks for speaking to Mirror Now. Now we speak about cybercrime. The dark web now plays a crucial role in the manner in which this cybercrime is now going ahead. According to you, is the government doing enough, and is it going in tandem with the kind of pace cybercrime has picked up? Is the government doing enough to curb the cybercrime menace? And is the government equipped to handle the new challenges that are being posed in front of them each passing day?
Actually, the government is not even keeping darkness as a priority. It is currently wanting to just keep it at the back burner. Consequently, we do not have any adequate policies or approaches on how to even deal with the darknet. India as a nation is keeping its eyes closed to the darknet. Now, the darknet has become a serious challenge for law enforcement agencies across the world. And having said that, we need to come up with cogent legal for to deal with the darknet.
Absolutely. This is not just a phenomenon that is existing in the country. It's a global phenomenon, and it's a huge challenge in front of the authorities, in front of the government there. But is the government taking this issue as seriously, with as much seriousness as this entire issue is requires at this point in time, is the question. If I can pose that question to Manu Zakaria as well. Manu, do you believe that the government is doing enough to curb the menace?
I would say there are certain actions being taken, but I think more needs to be done, because if you look at any of the traditional crimes, the regular credit card crimes, you can see that the criminals are always one step ahead. So they are, they have the required funding, they adopt the latest technologies, they don't wait for the technologies to, new technologies to come. They come out with their own technologies. So what we need is a similar approach for the law enforcement also, as well as from the policymakers.
And just if we look at the dark web alone, guns are being sold, ammunition is being sold to child pornography, and this is not only about dark web. If we speak about how the internet is being misused, from fake scams to fake news, unrest is being spread on social media platforms. This is a massive challenge in front of the authorities, in front of the government, that it needs to take head on. And as Pawan Duggal is saying, that it doesn't appear that the government is taking this with as much priority as it requires at the moment.
Exactly. So the seriousness of it is not very clear among the top brass, is what one reason I feel. Like most of them, they don't know what exactly is dark web and what are the consequences if we don't control it right now, or if we don't start bringing down the illegal websites and all those things. Because you can see that, you get passports, you get drugs, as you said, child pornography, illegal, so many stuffs are there.
Yes.
So right now, the seriousness is not visible, is what I would say one reason why we are very slow in tackling the dark web.
Pawan Dugal, if I can come to you for a question, and that would be, is there anything that you and I can do in order to not to fall into the trap of the dark web, or perhaps of any of the scams that are going around? Of course, there are many advisories issued each time around by the government as well, but at the basic level, is there anything that can be done to prevent this?
Well, I think first is at least be alive to the fact that darknet exists and realize that it's a bad world. The anonymity of the various layers of the Tor browser that is provided is often now being misused by cyber criminals. In fact, cybercrime has become the de facto mode of economic activity on the darknet. So if you are going to be going on the darknet, please keep that particular things into consideration. Use and explore the various websites in the darknet with care, because a lot of content that's being published therein is contra the provisions of various existing laws, and do not leave behind footprints to that extent. But primarily, it's a big ecosystem that's been developed, and the quicker people are able to realize the significance and the massive impact it's going to have upon propelling cybercrime and cybersecurity breaches, and the more people start inculcating cybersecurity as a way of life in their day-to-day activities, the more well-prepared they will be. Well, there is nothing known as absolute golden principles. Well, each one to its own price. Security is never absolute. But having said that, being aware of the problem is 50% of the potential battle won. Now, all eyes will have to be on the government on what it can come up with appropriate legal frameworks to deal with cybersecurity breaches and the constant cybersecurity operations and breaches that take place on the darknet. Clearly, cybercrime will continue to have a massive fillip, and it's our responsibility as far as possible to start taking baby steps to prevent us from becoming victims of cybercrime emanating from the darknet.
But this advisory, of course, is restricted to people such as you and I who are tuning in, who are aware, who are educated. But most of all, we also see these cases, target people from the lower strata who are an easy prey. How can that be prevented? Pranesh Prakash, cybersecurity expert, now joining us on the phone line. Pranesh, thanks for speaking to us. In your view, can anything be done at the basic level in order to prevent this menace? Because this is a new challenge that's being posed in front of the government. And as we've been discussing, it doesn't appear that this is on the priority list of the government.
Just to get a few issues clear, the phrase the dark net, when we're talking about it, it includes things such as Facebook, which is also available on as a Tor hidden site. It includes anonymity networks such as Tor, which actually are used by diplomats, which are used by, the Indian intelligence agencies. So when we're talking in negative terms solely, we have to be, clear that these dark net actually have lots of positive uses as well for national security and for researchers. Even things like Facebook and New York Times, etc., are all available on the dark net as well. So it's not just a playground for criminals as is being painted on this program. Secondly, we have to understand that even without the darknet, criminal elements are actually engaging in criminal activities online. So we see, for instance, even things like Twitter being used, and even all kinds of hate speech being spread on television, which is actually causing people to go out and threaten others with guns, as happened yesterday. So all kinds of criminal activities can happen without the darknet being there. Having said that, there have been multiple, for instance, Interpol and the FBI have cracked several cases on the darknet of things like, say, child sexual abuse imagery being shared. And indeed, they have been able to go not just shut down the websites on the darknet where these are being shared, but more importantly, to go and find the children who were being abused and make sure that they weren't being abused anymore. Okay, and when Interpol and FBI, etc., are able to do this, that actually shows that there are more than enough security vulnerabilities in the darknet protocols itself to be able to do this. So it's not completely dark, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
So there are ways that
all right, Pranesh Prakash, valid points there being made by you as well. Yes. Yes. Many thanks for sharing your inputs there. Of course, we'd also like to thank Pawan Duggal as well as Manu Zakaria for joining in here on the show. Also, Aishwarya Paliwal and Richa Sharma getting us that exclusive story here on Mirror Now. We'll continue tracking.